What I'm going to try to do is spend about 10 minutes just talking you through the growth agenda for Birmingham, and then really specifically focusing on some of the recent successes around High Speed 2 and some of the major projects that we've got coming opening in 2015. So just set a bit of a context for some of you who may know this and others who don't. I think it's very important that Birmingham by 23 will see a significant growth agenda. Over the next 20 odd years, we'll see the population increase by 150,000 people. That means within the city boundary, we're required to build 80,000 new homes. In employment terms, we need to generate about 100,000 new jobs, which actually means we need about 407 hectares of employment land to meet our requirement just by 2031. Through the process, the City Council's been working on what it calls the Birmingham Development Plan, and it looks at all the land availability within the city and identifies its capacity by 2031. And we've identified, within context of housing, we can only find land to meet 45,000 homes capacity on brownfield land. In employment terms, we've only got capacity for 253 hectares. To increase the housing proposition, we've actually proposed to release greenbelt land in Sutton Coldfields, really about proposing an urban extension to the city of 6,000 homes. We're also proposing to meet the employment requirements to extend the greenbelt to include 80 hectares of employment land in order to provide employment capacity for the city. The reason why it's important to many of you in this room is because the consequences of the lack of land supply has meant the existing land availability has actually pushed the prices up quite substantially. We've seen an increase in employment land values go particularly in the last 2 years, quite significantly. We've seen the conversion of older stock that we actually thought wouldn't come back into use starting to become occupied because the availability of new stock being built isn't there. What we've also seen an increasing pressure from residential growth on employment land, again pushing up land values. So we've really seen quite a bit of tension between different uses having a consequence on the values of it to come forward. I thought this is a slide just to understand Birmingham takes a very pro-growth approach. This is a map which is produced by CLG this year, and the dark areas are the areas that take a pro-growth approach, and how one of the measures in that growth is a number of planning applications that are approved on time. So for example, in Birmingham, we determine 90% of all of our major applications within 13 weeks. The national standard is only 60%. We determine all of our household applications and minor applications at about 96% within 8 weeks. The national target is 60. And the reason why we achieve that level of performance is actually because we are really keen to support growth happening in the city. Another key issue that we're actually very keen on supporting development is the community infrastructure levy. Due to come in by April 2015, the government has moved away from local authorities negotiating on an individual development site for Section 106 solely, but actually moved to having a tariff-based charge. We went into consultation as a council to look at the tariff-based charge on a number of uses across the city, from offices, residential, employment, retail, etc. And through that process, we had quite a significant high charge on offices, for example. And what we got back from the market was actually they felt, as the market starting to improve the current year, it's actually still quite incredibly fragile. So actually layering that with a tariff charge could actually really delay and slow development down. So taking that on board with the evidence, as an authority, we've now proposed we'll go for a zero charge. We're actually going to support the development industry that will actually reduce the level of tariff charge in order to ensure development takes place. We'll review this in 3 years' time, and as the market starts to improve and we see the evidence, we will look to start introducing a charge, but we're very keen to support development move forward as the market starts to improve. Just taking forward our aspiration and our vision. Many of you, if you followed the growth of the city, you'll see in September 2010, we launched something called the Big City Plan. Very simply, the Big City Plan tried to set out where we see the scale of growth take place in the city centre, and it articulated 5 major areas of growth. It identified, if you took the central business district of Colmore District, you would expand Colmore Business District on its 2 bookends, with Snow Hill on one end, and you'd expand the other on West Side with Paradise Circus and Arena Central. The third area was New Street Station, and with the money going into New Street Station, actually the opportunity that footfall and the permeability of access that New Street Station brings opportunity for greater floor space. The fourth was around High Speed 2, and I'll speak in a moment more about High Speed 2, but the opportunities that High Speed 2 brings for further growth and floor space capacity within the city. And the fifth, and the one that really does excite me, is the opportunity that the wholesale markets brings when we look at relocating that in the future. We'd done a plan, we'd engaged with the development and property industry, many people supported it, but the challenge was how we're going to turn that plan into delivery. And government was very clear that they called out for an enterprise zone, and if any are familiar with enterprise zones, they have a number of benefits. Firstly, any business that occupies premises in an enterprise zone gets rates relief, and it gets rates relief to the tune of about £55,000 per year, up to £275,000 over a 5-year period. And while that was very important, it wasn't going to really be a major incentive to get major corporates into grade A office space in the city centre. But what was important in the enterprise zone was the government allowed us to retain the uplift in business rates that were generated on any of the sites in the enterprise zone. And when you span that over the 26 sites that we've got in our enterprise zone, that generates a fund of £1.2 billion that the council and the local enterprise partnership can use to fund infrastructure to enable development to come forward. Birmingham has led the way nationally for enterprise zones, and I'm pleased to say that we've actually already committed to spending over £270 million worth of funds to unlock growth within the city centre. If any of you follow the story around Paradise Circus, well, Paradise Circus really has only happened because the enterprise zone is putting £83 million into Paradise Circus to fund infrastructure. So the reality is what the enterprise zone has done is tried to become as a tool in order to fund infrastructure to allow growth to take place. Great success on projects like New Street Station, which is progressing incredibly well. And it'll be a great year for Birmingham 2015. £600 million spent on the redevelopment of New Street Station, and we will see a position by 2015 where John Lewis and New Street Station both will open concurrently. The extension of the metro, and this is one I'm particularly passionate about. Many of you have seen we're already on site for expanding the metro, which will take from Snow Hill right down to New Street Station. And while I think we're very pleased about that, it wasn't going to deliver the long-term economic benefits we were seeking unless we expanded that route. So through the enterprise zone, we've put further resources in, and we've actually managed to get an agreement to extend the metro, which will now take you right through to Centenary Square. So we're starting to see the connection of the two ends of the business district to start to create some of the economic benefit. I'm pleased to say over the recent negotiation with government through the local enterprise partnership, we've now actually got even further funding to extend the metro, taking it right down the end of 5 ways. And we've also managed to secure funding to take metro right through to Curzon and to Digbeth, and I'll touch on that in a moment. But we're in a position now, we're seeing over £300 million worth of investment going in addition to the £128 million, to continue to expand the metro extension network within the city. But probably what I'd really like to emphasise today is High Speed 2. And many of you followed the story of High Speed 2, which is intending to reduce the journey time to 49 minutes to London, but most importantly, creates greater capacity to the network. For Birmingham, we're very fortunate. We have a terminus stop in the city centre, and we also have an interchange stop in Solihull. The intention is construction starts by 2017 and the first passenger service by 2026. In order to capture the growth opportunity that High Speed 2 brings, the City Council, working with partners, launched something it called Birmingham Curzon High Speed 2 Master Plan. And what the master plan seeked to do was set out how we can maximise the economic growth potential of High Speed 2 if we plan and support the appropriate infrastructure to unlock that growth. So in simple terms, the master plan set out 5 key asks if we were going to maximise on the growth. The first was that the High Speed 2 station had to be of a world-class architectural design. The second was that we had to integrate the existing infrastructure transport into the High Speed 2 station itself. And I mentioned earlier the extension of the metro, but we were very clear that we need to also bring a loop off the Snow Hill extension, bring it right through into the High Speed 2 station, and then take that right through to Digbeth, along New Canal Street and Paisley Street, and really open up Digbeth through investment into the metro extension. The third was also making sure that we had pedestrian connectivity, so you're able to have connectivity from Digbeth back into the city core, and that we also had some clear squares and promenades which enabled people and the free movement of people from the station into the city centre core. This is an artist's impression of the kind of quality of station that we seek to achieve, but what we think is important that the type of quality of the station is going to set the standard for the quality of development that goes around it. So where have we got today? We've launched a master plan, we've gone out to consultation, and we look to adopt that plan, but we're continuing to move forward with delivering on the growth strategy. So in order to take forward how we're going to deliver the master plan, we've already commissioned 3 major pieces of work. The first we've commissioned is what is the infrastructure cost in order to unlock the growth the master plan sets out. And that will look at things from utilities to the cost of the station, the metro, alongside the pedestrian and public realm. The second strand of that study is actually looking at the commercial viability of bringing development forward within the master plan itself and what are some of the things hindering it. And the last, we'll look at a financial model which sets out what is the total cost of all the infrastructure to deliver the master plan with a cash flow, and what are the funding sources that we'll be looking to use in order to fund that infrastructure. And in any of the stations across the UK, you're looking at funds anything between £300 to £400 million will be required to fund the scale of infrastructure we require to unlock that growth. One thing we've been incredibly focused on in Birmingham is ensuring that we see High Speed 2 as a major opportunity. And again, many of you would have seen in the press, we've managed to secure the relocation of High Speed 2 from London to Birmingham. That will go into 2 Snow Hill. That's 1,500 jobs created, direct jobs. And this is not a pipe dream that we hope will happen. These are real jobs, and they will start the recruitment process just after the new year. And we are talking senior level jobs. We understand the first 200 jobs within High Speed 2 will have the basic salary of anything between 100,000 to 140,000. The following 200 jobs will have anything between 70,000 to 100,000. So we are talking senior level officers from High Speed 2 based in Birmingham. This is not back office. And when you combine the High Speed 2 journey with Deutsche Bank, that really changes the office market perspective of what Birmingham's got to offer. In October, we're looking to launch a master plan on Snow Hill. And now that we've got High Speed 2 into Snow Hill, we think it's a real opportunity to capitalise on the supply chain companies that will support High Speed 2 itself. So we're hoping to launch a master plan in October, and we'll also be looking to target supply chain companies into High Speed 2 into that cluster. And the last but not least, we'll see in February, we'll be looking to launch the master plan for Southern Gateway. And Southern Gateway is principally where the wholesale markets is. We hopefully will be in a position where we would have had an agreement of relocating the markets into Aston, IMI. And then we should be setting out clearly what we see as the future of the Southern Gateway. And we see it as a major opportunity to create a family leisure destination in Birmingham, which has been missing for some time. And what we're trying to create is a rounded offer from your retail to your office market and your professional services to also leisure and family within the city centre. Thank you.